This is 47D. So the arrest of the king shakes up the assembly, and the assembly is now divided into three groups by their idea of what the revolution should be. On the left, you have the radicals. In the middle, the moderates. And on the right, you have the conservatives. The radicals are going to take over, and this is how they do it. A concern about Louis XVI from other kings brings about an invasion of France by Austria and Prussia, and eventually others. Why would this worry the kings of Austria and Prussia? It sets a bad precedent and a bad example to other unhappy peasants to forcibly take the ruler, to terrorize them, arrest them, and eventually Louis's not going to make it. We don't want this to happen to other rulers. It's eventually going to happen in Russia too. In 1792, the office of king is suspended. France says we don't have a king, we are a republic, and the king is put in jail. The National Convention takes over. They rule France and write another constitution. And it's done in a very threatening and violent way. The Jacobins take charge, and this is the reign of terror. The king is executed. The queen is executed, grotesquely and publicly. Robespierre is elected to the Committee of Public Safety, which is the most ironic thing ever because he's a very violent, grotesque person. The reign of terror lasts 1 year, and then Robespierre himself is given the same punishment that he's inflicted on hundreds of others: execution by guillotine, or guillotine, depending how you want to say it. Phase 3 of this is the Directory, and the Directory is 5 men with executive power. You could sort of call this an oligarchy, a small group in power. They are corrupt, and I do want to remind us as a class that whenever we try to get our own way through violence or manipulation, this doesn't promote peace. Violence makes more violence. It's the whole eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. Reform needs to happen, but we need the patience and the trust to do it in peaceful ways that do not malign the name of Jesus and his methods. You know, he said, "Put down your sword, Peter," when they were unjustly arresting him. The National Convention is dissolved. Now we're going to talk about Latin American revolutions. And then we'll come back after Latin American revolutions and talk about Napoleon. You'll see Napoleon playing a little bit into some French colonies during the Latin American revolutions, but let's see what's going on close to home. So we're living right about there, and there's going to be some Latin American revolutions so close to where we live. So basically, number 1, the Enlightenment values the American and French revolutions inspire revolts across Latin America, and most colonies gain their independence by 1830. Note number 2, the Haitian, and Haiti is right here, it's this part of the island, there. The Haitian Revolution, which was a French colony of Saint-Domingue on the Caribbean island, the whole island is Hispaniola, is the first successful Latin American revolt. A little quote about Haiti: thousands of slaves were imported from Africa to work on the tobacco, cocoa, cotton, and indigo farms. By the mid-18th century, mid-1700s, Saint-Domingue had become the most lucrative colony in the Caribbean. Over 40% of all European sugar and 75% of all European coffee, as well as much of France's 18th century wealth, the 1700s, and glory came from the slave labor in the plantations of La Perle des Antilles, the Pearl of the Antilles, Saint-Domingue. Note number 3, in 1789, French plantation owners used the turmoil of the French Revolution and Enlightenment ideas to gain home rule and economic freedom from France. Number 4, tragically, the wealthy French landowners granted no rights to gens de couleur, or the sizable slave population. Number 5, 1797.